Hello, one and all, and welcome once again to That Old World Charm. I'm your host, Peter the Falcon Colosimo. And with me, as always, is my intrepid hero, my sweetest of meats, Danny McDevitt. How you doing, buddy?
Peter, we out here. That's what I'll say about that. Yeah.
We out here. Everyone, if you're tuning in, Adam Camilleri could not join us today, so you're left with the utter raw chaos that is the two of us being unchained, unreined, unfulfilled. I don't know. There are a lot of uns.
Unbound, unfettered.
Those are better words. Unbroken, unbowed, unbent, unbroken. House Martell, bringing it back. Game of Thrones. Yes, Adam Camilleri could not join us. He's currently at Warhammer Worlds, going to be doing some commentary for 40K, probably Age of Sigmar as well, even though he knows nothing about it.
I thought he got the Wallaby flu.
No, did he?
I don't know.
Did you know that
That's
wallabies?
Just what I heard.
Is it wallabies that poop cubes, or is that sloths?
Oh, that's wombats.
Wombats. Wallabies are the little kangaroos. That's what it is.
Yeah, wallabies, are just small kangaroos.
We have some here at our zoo. I just totally forgot. So, folks, this is Old World Charm. We're here this week. We're going to talk to you about some recent event results, go over a couple of the big lists we're seeing in competitive play, chat a little bit about where we see the meta right now, and some upcoming comps, because Games Workshop has put out their Throne of Skulls comp, an event that is often very soft meta-wise, but they're doing some interesting stuff. And yeah, come join us for the ride.
Fly me back in time so we can play among the stars. Come and see what war was like before the coming of Sigmar. In other words, here they are. In other words, that old world charm.
So, Danny, what do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the Square-based online tournament part 2 and what's been going on there? Or would you like to talk about the latest GT that came out of the UK, the Rise of Chaos Champions?
Let's talk about Rise of Chaos Champions.
Excellent. So the Rise of Chaos Champions was a 25-person event that was run by Rob Symes of fame across the board as the Honest Wargamer. As Square-based, I guess, is a podcast he does.
I don't know. Who knows about that one? It seems kind of sus.
Arguably the most handsome person in Nottingham.
What's that bar? Because I feel like it's like we're talking like limbo masters only to get under that bar. I feel like
you say that, but if you've been near Rob in one of those plaid shirts and you've smelled him, Fair. It's an experience, man.
All right. I'll take your word for it.
And if you've watched him eat shawarma, that's a whew. Anyway,
is that so Rob OnlyFans, or is that like
God? I'm going to message Rob and ask if he has an OnlyFans, and it should just be shawarma related. Anyway, Rise of Chaos Champions, 5 rounds, 25 players. Bit of a murderer's row, I believe they call it. Some names that I've begun seeing more and more often at events.
In America, where things are less violent, we call that the who's who.
The who's who. The Shark Tank. And yeah, it's got a very interesting top 4, I would say, especially top 3. We've talked a lot in recent episodes about how strong Bretonnia is, and Wood Elves, and Tomb Kings, Warriors of Chaos. And we've kind of been a little humdrum about Dwarves and High Elves. And literally a week after we record how High Elves are a good army, but they struggle a little bit. What do we have here? We have an undefeated Dwarf list and an undefeated High Elf list at the top of the event.
Insanity.
So let's start with those. Danny, do you want to cover the High Elf list first? The one that came in second place on tiebreakers?
Peter, I would love to do that. I just don't have the lists in front of me.
Well, how about I read it to you,
Okay.
and then you make noises and tell me why it's good.
Okay, that sounds like a great format.
So, Sam Freestone coming up with an undefeated. He was 4 wins and a draw, second place. His general is a prince with a great weapon, full plate, shield on a star dragon with a talisman of protection, the dragon helm, 2 opal amulets, a seed of rebirth, and the pure of heart honor. So what does that guy do?
So that model has a 2+ armor save against shooting, but 3+ in close combat. He's got 2 opal amulets, which means that he can negate heroic killing blow on a 2+ twice per game. Give himself a 2+ ward save against those. And then he also naturally just has 3 saves. So at worst, it's a 3 up, 5 up, 5 up.
Yeah.
But against shooting, it's 2 up, 5 up, 5 up.
And Pure of Heart, that gives out his leadership to everyone in a bubble, right? On top of his general leadership. So if he happens to get hit by a leadership bomb from like necromancy or something, he's still providing that leadership 10, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Exactly. That's exactly correct. And it's in his command range, which is 18 inches because he's the general and on a dragon.
So that's amazing, especially with like Tomb Kings and vampire counts showing up with lists that try to demoralize you and drop your leadership left, right, and center. Just having this kind of cheat code to keep your leadership 10 on everybody is pretty wicked.
It's very nice.
Secondly, we've got this Archmage or Archmage with the Sword of Hoth, level 4. He's on foot. He's got that silvery wand, a sigil of Assyrian, a ruby ring of ruin. He's got the Warden of Safari honor so that he can take that Sword of Oath, and the Elementalism lore.
That's an interesting character. So 5 spells. So I assume we're shooting for Plague Arrest here. I mean, you're taking Elementalism, but Elementalism has a lot of good spells.
Yeah.
So he's got a Dispel Scroll effect, like old school Dispel Scroll. So once per game, he can just stop a spell from happening with Sigil of Assyrian.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else does he have? He has the Sword of Hoth. And what other magic items does he have?
So he's got a fireball on hand.
Yeah, that's good.
So, like, I think he's probably trying to get Travel Mystical Pathway because it's pretty crazy. Ruby Ring of Ruin, so he has his fireball. He can then also take the Magic Missile from Elementalism to give him some movement disruption against his opponent. And Plague of Rust, and I don't know what his Flaming Sword is pretty garbage. So I guess he can also take the signature spell for the -1 to hit. It seems like a pretty good combo.
Yeah.
He's also got a level 2 wizard, also on foot with Lore Familiar, a Power Scroll, Pure of Heart, and High Magic. I'm assuming this is just to get access to Walk Between Worlds if he needs it for protection. Because when you look at the rest of this list, he is not intending to ever be in combat ever in his whole life, except for with the Prince. Because his core is filled up with exactly 500 points of Illyrian Reavers and Elven Archers. He's got 3 units of 5 Illyrian Reavers with bows and skirmishers. And then 4 units of Elven Archers. 3 of them have champions, 1 does not. Just to get to that exact 500 points. In special, he's got 4 Tyrannok chariots in 1 single unit. And then at rare, he's got 13 Sisters of Avalon. And the High Sister has the Lore Master's Cloak for the 4+ ward save against magic missiles. Right?
Yeah. I like that. That's interesting, but that's the whole list?
That's the whole list. It's a whole lot of shooting. Masters. Yeah, a whole lot of shooting and 4 chariots in a single unit. And a big old dragon. Just being him.
I mean, the chariots can really generate a lot of combat resolution if you're not careful. And if you Plague Arrest somebody first, like those impact hits are going to do significant damage regardless of what your armor save is.
That's true. They're great at clearing out chaff that are trying to pick off your archers. And also, they're just good at running away.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's something where you can pretty easily go in, smash something, your opponent kills one of your chariots, and then you say, "Cool, I did my part," and then run and hope your billion wounds and 4+ armor save keeps you alive. Right? This is 100% like what if I played Wood Elves but as High Elves, the list, right?
Sure.
He's got a mage and an archmage to join probably the Sisters of the Thorn or Sisters of Avalorn.
Yeah.
So he can make them ethereal if he needs to. He's shooting a million shots and walking away. And then the dragon tries to hold up all the big, heavy, bad stuff.
Yep. And probably kill it, I think.
In most cases, yeah. There's not, yeah, because like he's immune to Monster Slayer, so any of those, well, functionally immune to Monster Slayer. Like there's a 1 in 6 chance that he's not. But like, yeah, he's it's a really solid list, I think. What's the weakness in this list if you would have to think about it? Like where would this list struggle?
If anyone can pin you down, like it just doesn't have, it has no survivability. I feel like if you can like it's going to be hard to pin down the Sisters of Avalorn, but you can. Especially if you have something that flies. I think that becomes a real issue for them. Like a flying large target.
Yeah.
Like if you can dodge the dragon, but like keep those guys in your sights, I think you'll do pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely a list that, like, if you can speed up and get in his face right away, he's going to have to rely on travel mystical pathway to escape a lot of baloney.
Yeah.
And if you're, like, say, running Warriors of Chaos with with an Infernal Puppet, or you've got like a really fast dwarf list, which we're about to talk about, that can possibly shut you down, like, which isn't common, but someone decided to start running them. Yeah, like it's a really great list. I think part of the thing with Warhammer Old World right now is that a lot of the really good lists you're playing rock paper scissors.
Yeah.
And yeah, he definitely pulled a big one here. So
what matchups did he get? Do you know?
Yeah, so his first game was a draw against the Royal Clan Dwarf, eventual winner of the event.
On round 1, they played each other.
Round 1. Then he played into Mortuary Cults. It looks like a kind of standard Mortuary Cults list, except no big block. So maybe not. It was double casket, 8 Ushabti, some Tomb Swarms, a Screaming Skull, and yeah, and then a couple of Tomb Scorpions and Necroserpents. So that's actually not that bad of an army for him to play into. If it had been like and a Bone Dragon. If it had been like a standard, like big archers block, he probably would have struggled. But so that's a good one there. And then his round 3, he played into another Tomb Kings list. This one's more like it's a regular Tomb Kings. It's not Mortuary Cults. It's got a little mix of everything. He's got a casket, a catapult, a single scorpion, 3 knights, 7 chariots, a couple units of horse archers, some tomb guard.
Yeah, that seems pretty standard.
Yeah, kind of like a high, almost Highlander Tomb Kings list.
Yeah.
Then his 4th round was into a Wolves of the Sea list that came in 3rd place.
Cool.
And this one, we'll talk about it later, but this is like a skirmish heavy list that I can see why it struggled into Wood Elves, but High Elves, because it's a bunch of like 5 and 6 model skirmishing guys that are trying to get into close combat. So that's easy pickings for 8 or 9 archer units, right? So
yeah. Well, every single unit there has bows, right? Like so, so he's got 15 reavers and 15 archers, and then he's got 13 sisters. And then also the chariots shoot 2 bow shots each with ignores cover and move and shoot.
Yeah.
So, or no, they're quick shot. I'm sorry, not move and shoot.
And his last matchup was against Beastmen, which had some small gore herds, a big unit of Razor Gores, a couple Tuskor Chariots, 8 Dragon Ogres, and a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and 2 Razor Gores. And he 20-0'd that list, which surprises me. This guy put both, the Beastman player did put both his Bray Shamans on foot. I think that was probably the kicker mistake there. Because, those Dragon Ogres often are going to do work. However, if they're getting Plague of Rusted and then shut down, or if they just get hit by that dragon, right? Because that's probably what the dragon's going to go for first. They don't have much of a prayer. But yeah, so that was his run. Is there anything you would do differently with a list like that, Danny? Like, what would like?
I just have concern about putting too many eggs in one basket with the sister squads. I'd rather just use those as purely dedicated shooters and then have like a combat unit that my mage rides in, so that I'm not afraid if people want to charge it with trash. Right? But no, I think it's got a lot of good. I can see why he made the decisions he did. I'm not 100% sure on the chariots, but I am hopeful that that's a good unit because I think they're cool. But
it is a cool idea.
I don't think they're that many points, right? It's probably 300 points for all those chariots. That's not.
It's exactly 300 points for 4, and it's a single unit, right? So, like I said, you hit something, you hopefully kill it because it's like some kind of trash that you're just trying to keep away from your backlines for a turn, and then run away and just keep running away and save 300 points.
Dude, they don't give up any points unless you kill the whole unit.
Yeah,
or they're running at the end of the game, I suppose.
Yeah, so it's really good. It's a really good way to save 300 points out of your list. And now we have the number 1 player, Richie Amplet, who I believe has his own YouTube channel or podcast, at least, where he basically focuses on the competitive side of Old World, mostly dwarves and how to make dwarves work. And it's great to see him putting up a result with the clans. So Richie here went with a pretty skewed Royal Host list. He's got an anvil with the Master Rune of Adamant and a Rune of Cleaving. And remind me again, what's the Master Rune of Adamant do?
That's the toughness 10 one, right?
Yes, it is.
I'm pulling up Adobe right now, or my army list for Forces of Fantasy.
And then Rune of Cleaving just gives him AP on his attacks if something gets locked in combat with him. He's got it has to be because it's 100 points. So yeah, it's definitely the toughness 10.
Okay, cool.
He's got a Runesmith who is his battle standard bearer because Royal Host can do that. With a great weapon, full plate shield. He's got the Master Rune of Grungni and a Rune of Battle and 3 runes of spell breaking on him.
Okay.
So he's going full out, I'm pushing this guy forward and shutting down your magic phase.
This is the BSB has Rune of Spellbreaking?
Yeah, because Runesmiths can be BSBs in the Royal Host.
Oh, right. I totally forgot. God, that is good.
Yeah. So he gets 125 points in banners, so he can take some crazy stuff, right? Because they get the 25 points extra.
Yeah.
So Master Rune of Grungni plus Rune of Battle plus 3 runes of Spellbreaking. That's a pretty tight little package as long as nobody challenges him out or.
He's 400 points.
Yeah, 279. He's almost 300 points for a guy with a 3 up armor save in close combat.
And toughness 4 and 2 wounds.
Yeah, but he does have quite the rest of the army in that unit to protect him. So, because he also has a king with a great weapon, full plate, who's his general on shield bearers with the Master Rune of Smiting. So he's sitting on that D6 damage on that great weapon. Master Rune of Gromrel because he gets that extra 25 points magic items. So because he's Royal Host, so he's got a 2-up armor save.
Yeah.
And then a Rune of Preservation and a Rune of the Furnace on him. So he's got flaming attacks, which cool.
And ignores multiple wounds and killing blow.
Exactly, which is the bigger one. 2+ armor save with 7 wounds. ignoring Killing Blow and multiple wounds. And a Master Rune of Smiting on a great weapon. That dude, he's tight. He does not die.
He slaps.
He slaps hard. And then for core, 28 Longbeards. That's it.
Yeah.
With drilled, great weapons, shields, an Elder with the Rune of Passage, so he gets moved through cover. His standard bearer has the Rune of Battle, Rune of Courage, and Strola's Rune, so he moves extra fast. He's got a dwarf.
So Rune of Strolaz's rune is that's from the they get Vanguard.
Yeah. So he's got Vanguard. He's got an extra +1 to his combat res, which with the Master Rune of Grungni gives him +2 to his combat res on that squad. +3 because the BSB's got it. Got another Rune of Battle, so they stack. And then and he's got his dwarf cart, so those Longbeards are movement 4 now. He's got a Grudge Thrower with a Rune of Forging, and then in the rare slot, he's got 18 Iron Drakes with drilled, and a Trollhammer Torpedo with a Rune of Courage.
Okay.
So this is definitely like YOLO brand dwarves. This is 100%. If you don't backline against this army, they are in your face turn 1. Right?
Because they move 12 inches up the table?
They move 12 and then...
plus a 4-inch Vanguard.
Plus a 4-inch Vanguard plus Anvil double moving them, which is, I guarantee, what he's banking on.
I missed the Anvil. I didn't know there was also an Anvil on that list. Okay.
So he's going, 12 with drilled. So he goes 4, then an additional 12, so 16 inches. Then he can go an additional 8 if he wants to drilled into like a good formation, if he needs to right away. And so that's still 24 inches up the board. Otherwise, if he's not worried about losing that first combat, which depending on what you have, he might not be, he can stay like 3 wide, take that first hit, give ground because he's stubborn and a billion other rules, and then drilled into
lose, yeah.
If he even loses, but then he like drills into like an 8 wide formation, from either giving ground or fall back in good order, or forcing you to fall back in good order. Either way, right? Like that's pretty deadly combo to get up in your opponent's face right away, because nobody really expects dwarves to move like 30 inches in a turn.
Right. It's true. Yeah, that seems pretty good if you don't know what's coming.
If you're not prepared, like I can definitely see some counters to this list. But if you're a good player, right? Like, which I think everything I've heard about Richie is that he is, like you can play around those too. Like this is just stalwart, a bunch of dudes in a unit doing everything they can. It's something we've seen also with the Square-based online tournament, this kind of move towards Death Stars for a lot of people. And this is definitely that, right? Like this unit is 600, 1100. Yeah, it's 1100, almost 1200 points for the Longbeards with the King and the Runesmith in one unit.
A lot of points.
It is.
But also it's a lot of points that are banked.
Yes, it's a lot of points that are banked. It's an insane amount of combat res because he's looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got base 6 combat res with this unit, right? Because he'll be 2 from ranks, Master Rune of Grungni, 2 runes of battle, close order. So yeah.
Banner battle standard. So that's 8.
Oh yes, 8. So he's got +8. Yeah, this is sick.
Also, potentially re-rolling armor saves.
Potentially re-rolling armor saves
with or +1 to armor save. So like they are like a 4 up from shooting and a 5 up, I guess, rerollable in combat, though, probably. Are they great weapons on the Longbeards, or are they hand weapon shield?
Great weapons. Well, he paid for both.
Sure.
So
Well, you should.
Yeah, so he could be either one. And it's Royal Host, so on the charge with great weapons, he's strength 7.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, on the charge or follow-up.
Yeah, and strength 5 with the hand weapons. With Gromrel weapons, right? So AP1.
Yeah.
Yeah, no joke.
Pretty good.
I like, if you're a dwarf player, and we have a lot of them in our Discord that are trying to figure out how to play dwarves. I am a Royal Host fan. This is a pretty sick way to play Royal Host right now, the way this game is being played. You don't get Doomseekers, which is a big bummer for me because I love them so much. But everything else about this list slaps. Yes, there are ways that can be countered. I know that he probably has thought of them, but like in my mind, the like Wood Elf Pillar of Fire spam list, he's got 1 turn to block everything with that Runesmith. So if you can dodge him for a turn, you lose a unit to the Iron Drakes, maybe, if you don't play smart. And then you should be able to just start picking them off. But you got to play like real stealthy for a round or 2.
It's pretty galaxy brain play, right? If you're going to be playing against this to win with skirmishers, but like also don't forget these are movement 4 blocks, so you can move around them. Just you know, be aware that you're going to lose a unit every turn to the Iron Drakes, and then maybe one to the Anvil because it's got the good magic. It's got a good magic missile.
It's got a good magic missile, yeah, and it's toughness 10. So it's definitely It's I'm really really interested in seeing this more. I might actually give this one a go myself, just to put in a rep with it. So yeah, congratulations to Richie for taking an army that a lot of people have been kind of sad about and trying to do crazy line hammer things with to make them work. And you're just like, well, what if I hit him hard?
What if it seems to work?
So we'll cover third place here. This Wolves of the Sea list that his only loss was to the High Elves at the event. So this is Tom Carley. He's got a general that is a Sorcerer Lord. So this is a leadership 8 army, I think.
Wow,
if I'm not mistaken. With Mark of Nurgle, he's a level 4 wizard with a demonic mount, a spell familiar, infernal puppet, brazen collar. So he's got magic resist 2 plus whatever unit he joins will get that too. 2 favors of the gods, running battle magic. He's got an exalted champion with heavy armor shield on a demonic mount with Mark of Nurgle. He's got a demonic mount, giant blade, the crown of everlasting conquest, favor of the gods, and enchanting aura. So this guy's a 4+ armor save because demonic mount doesn't have barding, or I don't believe.
That's an exalted.
Yeah, so he's an exalted. He's not you can't take a Chaos Lord and a Sorcerer Lord in in Wolves of the Sea. So yeah, exalted champ. He's still a 3+, 5+, 5+.
Because I think
the giant blade.
You can get the demonic mount does not have barding. Okay.
Yeah, so he's a 4+, 5+, 5+. Still 3 saves. He's getting +1 wound from the demonic mount, and he's movement 8. Instead
plus
of
combat
7.
protection
Plus combat protection. Yeah. In his core, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 units of Marauder Tribe Berserkers minimum, so just five guys each. 1 of them with a champion, the rest just plain Jane with flails.
Okay.
He's then got 2 units of Marauder Horsemen, 6 mans with flails and Mark of Corn. Flails, light armor, shield, Mark of Corn. 3 units of Warhounds, 2 of them with Vanguard, 1 without, because you can't pay for Vanguard on more than 2. He's got a unit of 7 Skin Wolves with a champ, and then a unit of 4 Skin Wolves by themselves.
So this is where the characters go.
Yeah, I imagine that he puts 2 of them probably in the big squad and then leaves the smaller squad as skirmishers. And then he's got 2 gigantic spawns of chaos that are nerdly burgly. And they're so good.
I love this list already.
I mean, this is like skirmish heaven. It has one unit that is a lot of points, but it's not one you want to deal with.
Yeah, true.
Right? Like, it moves super fast. It's got a lot of attacks. It's making you always strike last. Yeah.
I mean,
Those Marauder tribe, the Berserkers are like, they're better war dancers because of their points. You don't care if the ambush fucks them up because they're only 50 points. So you just put them in ambush and just let it happen, right? And then wherever they show up, it's disrupting your opponent.
Right, because he doesn't have Frydal.
Yeah, he doesn't have Frydal, so he's just banking on rolling when he needs to. But that's okay when your units are 50 points, right? They're all throwaways.
Yeah.
This is all hit it and quit it, right? Like even the Marauder Horseman with the Khorne, he can use the Warhounds to protect them for a turn, but then after that, he's probably just letting them loose, and who cares what they hit, right? Like,
Yeah, let's just see how much damage we can do.
yeah, exactly. And then he's got the Skin Wolves as the backup, and those. It also gives you time to get those spawn into play if you roll low on your 3d6 move.
That's true. They're a good chaff still.
Yeah. Also, I learned by playing Gigantic Spawn of Chaos that random movement is for all movement. I did not realize that it also impacted your follow-up moves.
Oh, that's pretty neat. I didn't think of that. But yeah,
Yeah.
of course it does.
Because, yeah, so follow-up says you go 2d6. You have to go 2d6. But then random mover says anytime you would move, other than give ground, you move your random movement instead. So yeah, it's sick. God, I love every time I play the Spawn of Chaos, I'm like, they're more broken than I first thought. Not that they're broken. There's way more broken stuff in the game, but they're so point efficient.
They're very good. Yeah.
So yeah, wicked list, really cool ideas. I would argue probably doesn't have the best answer to dragons other than not being in front of them, which it can do because this is fast as fuck. Just stellar.
Yeah. I like it a lot.
And then lastly, in fourth place, we've got Bretonia. And going through this list, I'm just looking to see if there's anything crazy. He ran 6 Grail Knights. Guys.
Dude, what a stud.
Guys, there's no Green Knight. And he's running 6 Grail Knights. So, Adam Harper, I don't care who you are as a person. Actually, that's not true. Folks, do not tell me he's a bad person. If he's a bad person, I'll be so sad. But good for you for not bothering taking the Green Knight, only taking 4 Pegasus Knights, and taking 6 Grail Knights, even though you did put the Falcon Horn on your champion in that unit, which is a dick move. I really appreciate everything else you did about this list.
I mean,
he even took the prayer icon of Jonathan Quinnell.
The classic item. You love to see that.
Love to see it.
You love to see
So yeah, so that was a really interesting, like a top 4 for a GT in a well-appointed area.
What a weird,
a very handsome man.
A very handsome man who smells very good.
He doesn't listen to our podcast and eats shawarma weird.
Yeah, I'm sure it is weird. Yeah, interesting meta. I haven't seen a lot of these armies do well. I mean, I know that these people had to play against good lists. I don't know how. I'd be interested to see like how these lists kind of stack up against some of the more broken stuff in the game right now.
Yeah, like of those lists we just talked about, the dwarf list I can definitely see stack up. I think it does really well into a lot of the shit that's out there right now. The high elf list I think does well into a number of the big lists, but there's a couple. I don't see. Like, I don't see how it does what it does into the Tomb King Royal Host list. It just doesn't have an answer. Other than die.
No, I mean, you can throw the dragon in, but eventually it's just going to roll enough ones that it dies.
Exactly. And that's the thing, right? The dragon, I think on average, like from every volley from those like 100 and some odd guys, he's going to take 2 wounds or 3 wounds. So even if you like rush up and they do not get Travel Mystical Pathway off, you're still taking 4 or 5 wounds just coming in. And then you're still taking, 10 or 15 or 20 poison attacks every turn. So in theory, after 2, 3, 4 rounds, you're just going to die from weight of attacks.
Right.
But like it's a long time. You're not also like, so you do have some play there to possibly get your points. Meanwhile, the rest of your list just kind of stands back because it has nothing to shoot at. So yeah, that's really cool. But the dwarf list, that thing is sick. Sick.
I like it a lot. Although, but I'd be interested to see exactly how many Longbeards die every time you shoot 100 dudes with poison.
I mean, at least with the Longbeards, they're not a large target, so it's only
True.
like 60 shots, right? So on average, they're probably gonna take 13 or 14 wounds, and they've got a 4-up save against shooting. So if they don't get the reroll, they're losing 4 or 5 a turn, which isn't great, but they only have to survive for 2 turns, right?
Assuming nothing gets in their way.
Assuming that nothing gets in their way, and then like I think those Longbeards do a lot better work in close combat. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we'd have to see. I'd like to also see that game being played. Like that king is also a beast. He doesn't care about that challenge with the Royal Herald and the Tomb King, because he, like, on average takes like 1 round of combat to 2 to kill the Royal Herald, and then that king has no saves anymore. So he'll be picking up characters, which is really good for that matchup too. Yeah, sick. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the Square-Based Online Tournament 2 finals. So your boy Falcon did not make the finals. We talked about it last week. Unfortunately, I had a very close game into Tomb Kings, didn't pull it off. So now I don't care. I'm just running fun stuff and learning. But the finale came through. Top 16, we had 8 Tomb Kings players, 3 Chaos players, 2 Wood Elf players, 2 Orc and Goblin players with very different lists. One was Troll Horde, one was Standard Good Stuff, and a Vampire Counts Good Stuff list that made it all the way to the top 16. I think there was a lot of talk early on that Tomb Kings were in a very good place. I don't think people imagined it was
this good.
9 of the top 16. Because, like, ever since Mortuary Cults come out, you and I have said it's busted, but there's been other busted stuff, right?
Dude, I mean, in our Tomb Kings review, we definitely talked about this block.
Yeah, like, and most of these lists are Mortuary Cults, or were Mortuary Cults, because we
sure. Yeah, Mortuary Cult is great. Like, everything about Mortuary Cult, like, synergizes so well with the Tomb King rules.
It's just, it's crazy. Like, yes, you don't get a Tomb King, but you cast it a +8 or a +9, right?
Yeah, just don't be a baby.
Just don't be a baby. You're always casting at a +8 or a +9 for whatever spell you want to get off. Caskets are bonkers. 2 caskets, even with the slight nerf to double casket, still absolutely gonzo bonkers. So we knew Mortuary Cults. This new Royal Host list that kind of sparked up and became a boogeyman. So far, like, it's still on track to have a good record, but of the like 3 or 4 people that brought it to the event, only one of them made it to the top 16. He barely won his round of 16. He beat the Vampire Good Stuff list, but like by like 150 points. Like, it was an 11-9 that, 1 wound either way, all of a sudden the Vamps go into the next round. So, but still, for those of you not knowing what the Royal Host list, it's this Death Star with a Tomb King on a chariot with a couple Royal Heralds on chariots, and then like 2 level 2 casters on chariots, plus a couple Tomb Scorpions, so your list is legal, and then between 150 and 110 and 150 royal cohorts, so a mix of skeleton archers and skeleton spearmen in the same unit. And it's the dumbest thing to watch, but it works because they have poison attacks. They always hit on 5s, and it's a DPS check. Most armies cannot kill enough of them to get the points out of that unit, right?
Right.
So we had that. We have, like we mentioned, a lot of mortuary cults. I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mortuary cult lists that are basically running the same kind of combo of 30 to 40 skeleton archers, a high priest on a dragon, 1 or 2 caskets, and then like Tomb Scorpions and Necrosphinxes to round out your list.
Yep. A lot of casters, usually 2 level 4s, I would say.
Yeah, either double level 4 or a level 4 and a bunch of level 2s.
Yeah.
For the Warriors of Chaos, we kind of see 2 lists here. Adam Schmuck or Adam Slutsky, who's a Canadian born and bred, doing the Chaos Lord fully decked out on a dragon, with brazen collar for magic resist and an ogre blade and a bunch of favors of the gods. A sorcerer lord with the infernal puppet, so that you're denying your opponent's spells. A bunch of Forsaken because they're just an awesome core unit.
They are.
He's running 6 chosen Chaos Knights, which have been up and down in people's eyes. I love them. Some people hate them.
I think they're great. Honestly, they're so good, like in a bunch of ways.
Well, yeah, especially with Drilled, like, because I think at the beginning a lot of people didn't understand how Drilled actually worked, and so they were kind of shitting on it. But Drilled is so amazing, especially on like Chosen Knights, because you can just be everywhere, and you've got that 2-up armor save to rely on. If you're really scared, you could put a blasted standard on them, and now they've got a 2-up rerollable against most of the shooting in the game.
That's pretty good.
So it's pretty good. You don't need the blasted standard. I think you're a coward if you run it. That's why I put it in all my lists. And then he's got some dragon ogres, and we see like a number of people kind of run that. I believe Combo Skipper, if I'm not mistaken, also doing a very similar build, except he went with a bunch of knights instead of Forsaken, and he brought a Warpfire Dragon instead of dragon ogres. Warpfire Dragon, that's sick.
Good for him.
Good for you. Combo Skipper, I hope you win, because Warpfire Dragons are sick as fuck.
They're cool.
And then lastly, my favorite list in the top 16 for Warriors of Chaos is King Pash, who's running a Chaos Lord on a steed instead of a dragon.
Okay.
With an ogre blade, a couple favors of the gods. My favorite item, which I mentioned on like episode 1 of the show, the Paymaster's Coin, and Enchanting Aura. He's got 2 Sorcerer Lords. One's a level 4 with Battle Magic, an Infernal Puppet, Ruby Ring. The other one is Demonology with the Tome of the Dark Gods.
Do you mean Jobby?
Jobby the Sorcerer Lord. And I love Jobby the Sorcerer Lord because he's really good at buffing, right? Like you get all the Demonology buffs, plus because of Tome of the Dark Gods, you get the Fleshy Abundance. So you can stack +2 toughness on yourself for a turn. And with Tzeentch, you're casting at a plus. Oh, no, he's not. He's Mark of Chaos Undivided, but you're still +4. It's a good chance to get both of them off when you need to. Then he's got 10 Chaos Knights, Mark of with an Icon of Darkness, so they're -1 to hit from shooting. A couple units of Warhounds, a small unit of Marauder Horsemen with the Mark of Tzeentch that he can throw his Battle Magic Sorcerer Lord in for the +1 to cast. 2 individual Dragon Ogres, and then a unit of 3 Dragon Ogres, and then a single gigantic spawn of Nurgle. Love this list. By saving points on the dragon, you get to do so much more stuff with your sorcerers, and you can create your own little mini Death Star of Chaos Knights that come at you at toughness 6 and strength 7 with like 1 billion AP and extra attacks, and I like that a lot.
That's so much.
They
seem awful to deal with, right? Like that unit is probably one of the best Death Stars in the game.
It's amazing. And I do think it's a really well-crafted list. If we look at the other armies on display, so after that round of 16, both Arc players got knocked out. Mifsyu, who's running like standard, a bunch of Night Goblins with Fanatics and Black Orcs, was beaten by King Pash, we just talked about. Ryan, who is running Troll Hordes with Double Giant, got kind of demolished by Tomb Kings, unfortunately.
It's very sad.
We did see one of the Wood Elf players who's running basically very similar to the list that won the event last time around. So he's got a Glade Lord on a dragon with a great weapon and an Ogre Blade. Not sure. I guess if he gets Balls Unmaking, he still has something cool. With the Talisman of Protection, the Netlings, and the Mischiefs. He's got a level 4 Spellweaver with Battle Magic and an Oaken Stave and a Ruby Ring. He's got a bunch of Deepwood Scouts, bunch of Glade Riders, bunch of Glade Guard, 2 units of Sisters of Storm instead of 3, so he's only casting like 3 Pillars of Fire in a game instead of 5. But he sacrificed all those pillars to have 11 Wild Riders in his list.
Ooh.
Which is pretty cool. Like Wild Riders, I think when the edition first came out, we were like super high on how good they were. And then they kind of got drowned out in favor of the Pillar of Fire list. And here's Morkel bringing them back.
I mean, in my mind, they've never left. Like a deep, abiding fear of getting hit by one of these units, having played them I don't know, probably 5 or 6 times. Every time I play them, I feel like they just absolutely wreck house.
Oh yeah.
This is all the parts of the list that are good.
Yeah. I mean, this is very similar to lists that I was running in that first tournament we played in. Well, at the end when I took the kid gloves off, and like Wild Riders, I love the double unit of Wild Riders because I always find one of them, like your opponent, one of them, like there's one that your opponent manages to bait, and then the other one wrecks, just like runs down a full flank of dudes. That's why I always love seeing 2.
It's good. Excuse me.
Let's see. We didn't really have much else. There was the one vampire list. Vampires have gone an interesting way with less screams. They're still running the Mortis engine, but I'm seeing a lot of lists going with the level 3 vampire count on an Abyssal Terror with Illusion to try and like control the board a little better while smashing you. This particular list that almost beat the big boogeyman has 2 units of Crypt Ghouls, 2 units of Direwolves, a big block of Graveguard, a couple small units of Fellbats, and then of course 8 Blood Knights. I played against an almost exact copy of this list the other night. It had some of the most brutal leadership test luck in my entire life against it, which did not help me. That said, I played very aggressively because I was testing a couple things out. I made I would say I made a couple errors almost intentionally to see what would happen. And because I thought, dice will help me. Whenever you think that, folks, they will not. Never rely on dice. Like, when you look at it and you go, the odds are that 70% of the time or 80% of the time this is going to work.
Yeah.
Unless it's 100%, assume it's going to fail.
Just not going to work.
So, but yeah, I played against, and it's a very, very strong list, even without all of the screams. And I actually like it because it doesn't have a million screams, because screams just feel dirty. Even the one scream, every time it goes off, feels dirty. So,
yeah. Well, what do you think about that? Do you think this is Vampire Counts players? Do you think that they're kind of trying to take stuff back on purpose? Or do you think that it's just fallen out of favor in the meta? I feel like it's intentional to me, but I don't know. What do you think, Peter?
I think it's kind of intentional. I think it's a mix. I think there's a bit of intentional here because they did get a lot of bad rap for Scream, but like Terrorgeists are not good in the meta.
Yeah.
And especially in a square-based online GT where you get an extra 50 points for killing a monster, and Terrorgeists don't die actually relatively easily.
They're pretty easy to kill.
That's one thing. I'm surprised about the lack of Banshees. I think we will see Banshees come back because you should be running Banshees in my mind. I do think that they're still very good until Screams get an FAQ, which they won't anymore, right? So it's going to be a tournament that's going to have to FAQ them because Games Workshop's not going to, which is frustrating because, man, if Screams didn't work into combat, I would think that I would not be as mad about this army sometimes as I am.
Well, yeah, if they take, they should be able to scream into their own combat so they're vulnerable. But like, I don't like them screaming outside of combat into combat.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I'm okay with like if like I charge the Banshees and they scream in my face. That's cool. It's just like I hate when, like, for an example, my Chaos Knights charge a unit and then the Mortis engine just walks up behind them and is like boogity boogity boo, and like 6 Chaos Knights die, and you're just like, oh, cool. You didn't need to be able to do that. So please don't do that anymore. I am pretty impressed with where this top 16 went. I'm surprised that no Bretonia made it into the top 16.
Yeah, me too.
I would have thought we'd have had at least one. This is more Tomb Kings than I expected. I expected 4 or 5 Tomb Kings in the top. 9 is a lot.
Yeah, 9 is a lot. That's like, that's crazy overrepresented for how many people play those. Like almost every single finals game or top 16 game involved Tomb Kings, and one of them was just a mirror match.
Yeah. Basically, the only reason why they didn't all is because one of them was a mirror match.
Yeah, one game out of 8 did not have Tomb Kings on one side of the table or the other.
Yeah, and now we're going into our top 8, and we're seeing Tomb Kings versus Tomb Kings, Royal Host versus Mortuary Cults. Warriors of Chaos is playing into Wood Elves. Actually, somehow Tomb Kings dodged all of the Warriors of Chaos matches because the other Warriors of Chaos players are playing each other. There's 3 Tomb King mirror matches. And then, so of the top 8 right now, 2 of the Tomb Kings are in mirror matches, and then the Warriors of Chaos are playing each other, and the other Warriors of Chaos player is playing Wood Elves. So interesting. So there's only going to be 2 Tomb Kings players making it to the top 4, but purely because they all got matched up into each other.
Right.
Which is wild to me.
What a weird event. That's cool though. I'm glad to see them representing and doing well, of course. Maybe it would be cool if they were a little bit less well represented.
Yeah. So talking about all these matches and talking about what happened at Nottingham, we've been seeing and we've been getting asked a lot in our Discord about our thoughts on comps, what needs to be comped, and like what do we expect from Games Workshop. And it's a really interesting topic. We did have like a whole episode kind of devoted to old comps before, if you go back. And now we've had a number of episodes where we've talked about what we thought was kind of broken in the game right now. But Games Workshop did just release their rules for the Throne of Skulls big event that's coming up at Warhammer World. And Throne of Skulls is like notorious for being a like really fluff-oriented event, I would say, but also one where they've tested out rules in the past.
Sure.
And we've seen a change in comp. So Warhammer World has really just been doing a rule of 3 comp up until now. And now for Throne of Skulls, they've added a couple of new features. One is that for their event, you are only going to be allowed a character that's max 1/4 of your army, 25% of your army. That's the highest point value you can give to a character. So at 2,000 points, 500.
Yep.
And you're going to be limited to a single level 4 caster and 1 level 3 caster per 1,000 points in your army list. And I've seen a lot of comments online about about what this means. Is it what's going to be like going forward? What does it even do? Who does it hurt? Does it impact anything?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Danny?
Right off the bat, I think that these are all good changes. Like, let me just preface it with that. I think that these are changes in the right direction. I think they address problem areas that are probably not as much fun, because I think Magic is probably one of those things that keeps a good infantry build down even more, especially with things like Pillar of Fire and stuff like that. I think that restrictions on Magic are generally pretty good. Tzeentch demons hate this one weird trick, which is Magic Comp. But other than that, I think everybody else probably likes it okay. I also really like not more than 25% of your total army's value on a single character. It does limit some of your dragon builds quite a bit by like 50 or 60 points, which actually makes a really big difference for several of the different dragon builds for being a little abusive.
Yeah. I mean, for some of the Chaos Dragon builds, it's like 100 and some odd points, right? Because there are Chaos Dragons that are in the 600 plus range if you go all out.
Yeah, you're right.
And now, like a Chaos Dragon, because a Chaos Dragon base is 465 points, I think.
So only getting 75 points of magic items. You can't even do triple save on that Chaos Dragon anymore.
Like, you're basically giving him a lance or a great weapon, and then maybe a 30 point or a 35 point item. And that's it. Which is a huge change for those builds. The High Elf Dragon takes a decent hit here too. You can't be as defensive. You can be more defensive than the Chaos one.
But the rider isn't quite as good as on the High Elf Dragon.
Exactly. You're not building a dragon that's both good in combat and defensive any longer for like almost anybody. The Wood Elf Dragon's probably the one that comes off the best. But even then, like, you're not taking Ogre Blade anymore. You have to take a great weapon, and then you're doing what you can. So yeah, like, this is a really, really interesting change. It does take a huge chunk off of those big, scary ridden monsters, for sure. It doesn't impact probably a couple of the armies that I think people would love to see impacted, namely Bretonnia and Tomb Kings, because Tomb Kings generally aren't running dragons in that 500 point price range. And Bretonnia has nothing in that price range, right? So
yeah, right, exactly. So that's kind of disappointing, I suppose, but I think those armies need to be addressed by real game changes, not necessarily just a comp pack.
Yeah. And then Wizard Spam, like you said, I'm into it. I wish they went farther, actually, to be honest. I would be super cool if they said 1 level 4 per army, 1 level 3 per army, and then, like, if you capped level 2s or level 2 equivalents. Because, yeah, Pillar of Fire Spam is a really shitty list to play into, even if there's a lot of counters to it in the meta. Like, one of the things...
Don't you feel like it's mostly Sisters of Thorn that are the problem?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Pillar is just like prevalent everywhere. Pillar probably just needs a change as a spell, right? But yeah, Sisters are needed an adjustment, period. Or they need to adjust comp in such a way that you can't, like, spamming them doesn't have an effect. Something that I've seen talked about and that I have talked about is limiting and I think we talked about it previously as well, limiting just how many times you can cast the same spell in a turn.
Yeah.
That nerfs Sisters of the Thorn, I think, to a place where they're fine. Like, if you can only cast Fireball and Pillar of Fire once per turn, like, they still have a ton of value. So
right. Yeah, they're not bad or anything. Sure.
So Yeah, so I'm really curious. There's a lot of talk on the grapevine, and I'm saying this with no foreknowledge,
Mhm.
um, that these are changes that we're going to see in like a general's handbook.
That's
Um,
exciting.
I'm really excited about the potential for a general's handbook coming up because um, I'm kind of getting bored. I need some comp in my life.
Wow.
I think I'm safe to say it. Like I want I want some restrictions on what I'm allowed to do, and I don't
Mhm.
care where they come from. So I'm really cool with events doing that to me to make me think
Sure.
a different way about lists. But I kind of want to see what GW wants to do about it. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I'm really
because
interested to see what their response is. Like, I mean, we already seen this small response here, right? But
yeah,
like, I'm interested to see what they also feel like are the problem areas in their game, and if they reflect the same kind of problems that we feel like are problems.
and how far they're willing to go. Um, and yeah, because like I've seen a lot of talk online of people going over their comps, and some of them are wild. I have
Mhm.
seen like as should be expected, people in Sweden and stuff, they're going batshit crazy like they did back in previous editions with 18 pages of comp rules to nerf every army in the game, which is,
Yeah.
by the way, I'm saying it facetiously, but also I'm into it. If that's how you want to play the game, I
Yeah.
love it. And I want to play in that meta just as much as I want to play in a meta where they don't comp anything and they're just like take whatever you want. Um, because I think what we've seen with like SBoT, um, these larger events, we've now had two of them in a row with really only slight FAQ adjustments with wildly different top 16s, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's cool to me because we're seeing people adjust. Um,
I
and
like that part a lot.
so yeah, so like I can come up with all sorts of ideas of what should be better. Like maybe we should cap unit strengths at like 50 or 60 or something like that, or 40. So we don't have giant Death Stars. But who does that fix and what does that hurt? Because like that dwarf Death Star, that's less than 40 unit strength, right? And it's still fucks so much
Yeah,
stuff.
it's well, yeah. I think the issue there, like maybe a prohibition on the number of characters that can join a unit or something like that is
That
probably a
would be
good one.
cool too.
Yeah.
I'm going to an event. I'm planning on. We'll see if I can actually make it. As a single dad, sometimes I make plans
Yeah.
that just don't go through. But in a week and a half, there's an event happening in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is 2.5 hours away from me. And they have a wild comp pack, in my opinion, where all heavy cavalry have 2 wounds. Um,
Wow.
and they're allowing +1 rank bonus for all infantry, heavy infantry, cavalry, and heavy cavalry in the game. They're also taking on the Throne of Skulls limitations. Excuse me. And they're doing a rule of 3/rule of 4 for core. So they're putting in like a bunch of different stuff. Um, and I really want to play in that. Like at first when I saw it, I was like, "That's wild. I don't want to have anything to do with that." And then I just was like sitting up at night, and I was like, "I
Mhm.
want a list build for this." And I started making lists that I thought would be and it's so much different, right? And that's what sparks
Yeah.
joy. I think list building is what sparks joy in me more than anything. And that's probably why I get bored because my ADHD kicks in, right? Um, and it's like I've
Like, where
made
you just
100
get tired
lists.
of building lists?
I get tired of building the same lists towards the same comp, like trying to maximize what's good or what's fair, because I do that a lot too, which is something we could
Yeah.
probably do a whole episode about, like about list building and building for making your opponents cry
Mhm.
versus making it for fairness or fear of failure, which is probably both reasonable. So,
Yeah.
well, Dan, is there anything else you wanted to talk about on this episode today?
Nope. You know what? This was good though. I like to see where the meta's going. I think this gives you like so I think this gives us in general, like we can look at kind of what things are good and then potentially official changes from Games Workshop on things moving forward and kind of see where we're going to go next. So I'm really excited to see like maybe less magic and maybe I like that part a lot. I hope that more people take less level 4s. I think that's good for the game overall.
Yeah.
And then maybe, who knows? Maybe things will get crazy and we'll be able to take infantry units that aren't Death Stars. Like, it's a wild concept, but maybe we'll get there.
I think that's the magic. If someone could make a comp for me that's really good using 3 blocks of infantry, I'm in. And
Same.
I think, and I was telling Val Heffelfinger, Simon Papor of Square-Based fame, I think the way that we need to do it is we need to make a tournament pack where at least 2 of the missions aren't kill point based. And then I think that changes everything about the game.
That is true. I definitely would like to see some extra missions with some alternate win paths as well that aren't purely just kill points.
Kill points. Yeah. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. We've been talking to you for an hour. Danny's getting tired, and that's because I'm projecting, because I'm the one that's actually tired.
No, I am extremely tired.
So, my babies, we're going to catch you on the flip side. Say goodbye, Danny.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to That Old World Charm with those charming chaps, Adam, Danny, and Peter the Falcon. Thanks ever so much. Cheerio.